Hello everyone, my name's Bryn and welcome back to my channel. Here on Bryn Darcy we talk about life and study at the Australian National University in Canberra, obviously here in Australia. So for today's video I'm going to be talking to you about what it is like to study online at the Australian National University in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. You would have thought I'd be able to say pandemic by this point. Anyway, so I've written a few notes on what I think it's like to study here at the ANU during the pandemic, and how I've found what the ANU has done and the systems we use, and whether I overall think it's good or not, I suppose. So let's get on to the video. So firstly, the Australian National University already had a lot of systems in place for online study. A lot of our systems, I suppose, were already sort of tailored to working online anyway. So for example, we use a Moodle based software called Wattle, which connects basically lecturers and the students. It's used for posting assignments, for receiving your grades, for posting the weekly readings if there's not a textbook for the class and the weekly readings are provided, the lecture slides, the assessment rubrics and the assessment questions. Also, lectures are recorded on a software called Echo 360, which is available through Wattle, and that's where you can get all of your lecture content. So these two softwares are kind of used together. They were both used pre-pandemic. The ANU had all of the student materials, I suppose, the study materials on Wattle already, and that's how communication occurred between teachers and students. Echo 360 was also used pre-pandemic to record lectures. So if you missed a lecture because you were sick, or sometimes you have a timetable clash where two lectures are on at the same time, or you just want to, watch the lecture recording back, you were able to do that pre-pandemic as well. But obviously now during the pandemic, the use of Wattle and Echo 360 have increased exponentially. Obviously that was in the beginning the only way students could communicate with their teachers. So all of our learning material moved online and all of our lectures were recorded online. I would say in general these systems are already fairly useful for students, so there wasn't too many changes that had to be made. So I would say that both Wattle and Echo 360 work well anyway. I enjoyed watching the lectures at home rather than going to the lecture hall anyway, because I found that I could write better notes at home, basically, because I could pause the lecture when I had to and write my notes and then continue watching it. Whereas obviously in person you have to make all the notes as fast as you can. But the benefit to attending a lecture in person is you can ask questions, and you can't really do that with the lectures online, except if they are recorded on Zoom, which I will get into in a second. But apart from that, some exams have now been conducted through Wattle, which I never really had an exam conducted at university not online, because I started at the start of the pandemic. So for me it's quite normal, but I imagine that if you enjoy writing exams, I'm not sure why, it can be easier in person sometimes. None of my exams so far have been proctored exams. They've all been exams that you can use all of the material for, so open book exams, except for one which we couldn't use our notes or anything. We just had to do it from memory, but it still wasn't proctored. But yeah, I think that so far that's, in my opinion at least, a good way to conduct exams, because it is more similar to how how tasks are conducted in the working world. In the working world, you are very rarely, as an international relations major, going to have to sit for 2.5 hours and remember everything you can about a topic. like you have other resources that you can use. So I think that in terms of that, the online exams that have been conducted are actually quite useful to me, because they teach me skills that I will need to use in my working life. So my next point is Zoom. So the ANU has employed the use of Zoom software to conduct tutorials, like the meetings with the teachers. What are they called? Consultation hours? I forget, I can't remember. And also sometimes lectures. So I've found Zoom quite easy to use so far. It's obviously weird, it's awkward to not be able to talk to people in real life. However, you can still type your question in like the message box if you have some questions, and you know, everyone's in the same boat basically. So having Zoom for me isn't that much of a challenge. I feel like the ANU adapted quite well to online classes. And yeah, I think that Zoom is a good software to use. In terms of lectures, some lectures now you can attend via Zoom, so you can ask questions, and then you have to, and then the lectures are then posted later as well for people who couldn't attend. Yeah, so I would say that on the whole, Zoom is a good software and it's been used relatively well at the ANU. That's coming from a student who knows nothing about software, so take that as you will. I already discussed how online lectures are occurring, but basically all lectures are still occurring online through either Zoom or another platform, and then posted via Echo 360, which again, I always use the online lecture forum, so that's not such a change for me, but for other people that might be difficult to use. In terms of tutorials, I've already spoken about the online tutorials through Zoom, but there are also tutorials through Microsoft Teams, I think. And at the moment, there are a few tutorials that are running in person at the ANU, but they are at very limited capacity. So yeah, there is options for students who are in Australia. Obviously for international students at the moment, there is just Zoom tutorials, or if your course doesn't have tutorials, there are other options, but yeah, that's currently the only option for international students, which can be difficult considering the time zones, but there is usually a range of options available from early in the morning to later in the evening, between 8 AM and 5 PM usually, on various different days during the week. Other than that, some classes don't actually even have tutorials anymore. Instead, they just have a forum that you can attend and post answers to questions for your tutorial marks. I do find those quite useful because I can attend at a time that suits me, whether that's 10 PM at night or 8 AM in the morning. I can attend and perform in my tutorial. Yeah, so I think that covers tutorials. In general, I have two criticisms of online learning. And I think that this is not necessarily something that the ANU can change. This is simply a product of the circumstances that we find ourselves in with the pandemic. So first of all, there's a great lack of motivation. You know, if you're not attending somewhere every day and doing the work every day because there's a teacher there who's talking to you and pushing you, it can be really difficult to get work done. And especially at the beginning of the pandemic, I was okay with the situation. I was still quite motivated. After about 4 months of sheltering in place, so my household sheltered in place basically throughout the pandemic. In the 4 months of doing that, after 4 months of doing that, I lost all motivation. So it was quite difficult to regain that, but I did find that I could regain it eventually, to an extent at least. And yeah, it's still difficult, but yeah, I suppose that's just a product of the circumstances of 2020 and now 2021. And my second criticism is that it's really difficult to make friends. Making friends in a tutorial when you're there in person is much easier because usually you arrive a little bit early, you can chat to each other, you know, you can ask questions about their background or whatever. Whereas if you're making friends online in an online tutorial, it's much more difficult because, you know, everyone arrives, no one's got their cameras on, no one's got their microphones on. It's definitely more isolating. So that was something that I struggled with a bit. And yeah, I don't think that there's anything that the university could have done about that. That's just, again, a product of the circumstances. But yeah, that was one of the difficulties I had with online learning. But I suppose if you lived on campus, maybe it would be easier to make friends anyway, because in certain types of accommodation you share bathrooms or kitchens or living spaces or whatever. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video about my online learning experience at the ANU during the pandemic. Currently in Australia, we are not experiencing the pandemic to the degree that other countries are, but I was very cautious during the pandemic, and I'm still cautious now, which is why I have chosen to continue learning online despite being here in Australia. Yeah, I just urge you all to remain safe and remain vigilant, and follow the government guidelines in whatever country you're in, and just to care for each other, because showing compassion in times like these is really important. So yeah, thank you again for watching today's video. If you have any questions about anything, please let me know. I will be filming a really exciting Q&A soon about basically everything you need to know if you are a student wanting to come and study here at the ANU. It will be especially useful, I think, for international students who might not have the chance to come and visit before they decide that they want to come. So if you have any questions for that video, please leave them below, or send me a message on Instagram. I've had a few people contacting me recently, and it's great to hear all your stories and how excited you are to come and study at ANU. So thanks again, bye!